offers, negotiations, and inspections. Oh my. Things are moving faster now and emotions are rising. As the seller, you are losing power and you're also probably counting your money before you have it. And the buyer is overwhelmed and they're worried they're making the worst decision of their life. It's a rough couple of weeks. This is why both sides have agents representing them as intermediaries to remove as much emotion as possible and to negotiate and advocate for from a point of logic versus emotion to make sure everyone's focused on the end objective, which is to get this transaction closed. All right. Before we dive into all that fun stuff, let's take a quick step back. You were ready for what was coming up in those offers, right? You knew the contracts, they were ready. You were well prepared for that, correct? Right? A lot of time buyers are going to ask for a few small things in there, such as the closing costs, some closing costs paid for, home warranty, and sometimes even the curtains. You never know. I've had that before. But I like to try to focus on three core things, which is I guess the total net price to the seller, which is you, the due diligence period, which is allows you to get back on the market as fast as possible in case they do not follow through, and finally the deposit, so you get money back in case they do not follow through. These are the three key things I feel that are really part of the most important parts as the seller. So if they ask for these smaller things, I say let them have them all, and you try to focus on those core three things. They're putting too many variables in there, so give them, say, all three of those. Give them their whatever closing costs, as long as you compensate for that with the purchase price, of course, and give them those curtains. Obviously, give them the home warranty if they ask for it. Give them those variables. Stay focused on what's going to really affect you in case this falls through, or or at the closing table. And if you have multiple offers, breaking these three things down to each one makes it much easier to compare them as well. Your agent needs to present these very simply and professionally. It's going to seem like your agent may be kind of cold at this point, not excited. They are not wanting to give their impression on what the deals might be. They are trying to make sure they don't influence you from an emotional level at this point. They want to make sure you are making a logical decision. Researching the buyers. All right, so when the buyer's agent calls the selling agent and says they have an offer, they're going to be saying how great this client is, how they're going to close, they're going to be your best person ever, they love this house, etc. They're going to be selling them on that. There's going to be some details that come out in that information that your agent should be researching, figuring out what they might be like to work with during this whole process, especially during the inspection period all the way up to closing. You are going to be in a professional relationship with these people for a little bit, so if these are the type of people you think aren't really going to close, or might be really difficult to work with when it comes to inspection periods, you want to try to flush those things out. I'm going to do a full video on researching buyers, doing the due diligence on researching what you're going to be dealing with. But as a brief overview, that's what they're going to be doing at this stage. Another important thing for your agent to be researching is they're going to be calling the actual lender in this whole process, making sure they actually really reviewed it, made sure it's a real pre-approval, and that all the information on the terms seem reasonable. And the agent should also know what the current loan terms are, whether those are reasonable to begin with. Because if they are expecting a 3% loan, they have that in the contingency, they have your house locked in for 20 days or so. You got to watch out for that. So you got to sign contract. Your agent and their agent are sending the contract over to the brokers, making sure there's nothing missing, making sure all the documentation is in place. They're probably going to ask you for some follow up things at this point. Oh, I forgot this piece of paper. So be ready for that. Additionally, the buyers are going to be having some extra questions about the inspection period, they're looking for in the inspections. They're going to be asking you some additional questions about, the condition of stuff, and you also got to schedule these inspections, etc. Then after those inspections, there's going to be a lot more questions about, so when exactly was this plumbing thing repaired, or what happened here, or what was this? There's going to be a lot of those. Be ready for them. You should be aware that the buyer is on a time crunch here and they're kind of stressed out. So, give them some leniency, I would recommend. We also got to be aware that this is the buyer's peak leverage point. They can walk away for any reason. It won't cost them a thing. Meanwhile, you would have to go list it again, go back on market. It's going to cost you time, and then you're going to have to try to explain away why your house didn't sell the first time and it came out from something came out in the inspection. You're going to be explaining that from the get go when you get on the market, in addition to the time that it cost you. Assuming your buyers are reasonable, how this will go through is kind of going to determine on how the house was presented, from the get go. If you presented it as perfect in every single way, they're going to ask for more things to be repaired. If you just represented it, you're upfront at the beginning with the inspection report, and you present it as a good house, with nothing is perfect, versus if you sold it as a fixer upper, they're probably not going to ask for very many repairs. So it determines how you went into it. If everyone's acting in good faith, as long as everything was presented up front, I think it's really going to help you in this stage. If you had that inspection report, remember that you had on the counter, that that they knew most of everything that was going to be there from the get go, before they even made an offer. So hopefully it's not an emotional period. That's what we want to try to reduce emotions here as much as possible. That was one of the reasons for that. Hopefully it's really helping you out now. And they will likely ask for something. If they start to feel getting like they're getting a little too far, you can offer them a home warranty. It'll make them feel a little like warm and fuzzy. I do recommend sellers do stuff like get the HVAC serviced, get your outlets working, get those leaks fixed, because they're going to come up again anyways, and they're a small comparable thing. If you're talking about weather stripping, they can do that when they buy the house. And additionally, like large stuff, don't put in a new driveway, for example. You're not going to get your money back. They can not walk. This deal can still fall through at any time. So you don't want to have to spend all that money on that when it's not really going to help you if you go back on the market. Want to try to do a version of this for buyers as well, for what a buyer's agent should do. And it's because this is also in the buyer's best interest. If something is really important to them, I think they should have the control over it and make sure it's done by a quality person. Getting past the financing contingency. If they are using financing, they probably have a financing contingency. These usually go on about 3 weeks. So your inspection period is usually 7 to 10 days, especially right now. There are plenty of inspectors available, so you can get one out within a couple of days. The financing contingency is generally going to last about 3 weeks, 21 days, because they got to do all their background. They got to do a lot more lender stuff to check, I guess. Hopefully, your agent has done a good job keeping in contact with the lender, and there's going to be usually a circle of emails between the agents and the lender and the attorneys to make sure everything is still moving forward and all the questions are getting resolved as they need. So hopefully this won't be like a blindsided thing on the 21st day. You'll at least have some knowledge that it's coming. That's another important thing. They got to stay in that circle. There's going to be all these emails going back and forth, because this is a big reason why a lot of houses are going out from under contract these days, which is one of the biggest concerns in the market right now. Next up is going to be managing the closing. And we will see you soon. This is Investing in Georgia. This is Alan. If you have any questions about Georgia real estate or construction, give me, where I'm at.